Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the podcast. It is Tuesday, the 23rd of September 2025, and I am very pleased that you are joining me for this episode. Now, I do sound a little bit ropey this evening, and that is because I have another cold. So if you're a regular listener and you're thinking, my goodness, that woman is always sick, I think you might be right, actually. I think I got it from the Dahlia show that I went to on Sunday. And because I don't socialize very much, I don't do anything very much actually. Pretty much after every conversation with anybody, I get sick. So I either need to stand further apart from people or just, I don't know, stop going out. It does seem like people stand very close these days. I quite liked the COVID days when people did stay a few feet away from you at least. Some people just get like really close when they're talking to you. And I always think, oh, I'm going to get sick. I'm going to get sick. And then I'm sick. So I'm sorry about my voice. I've got a lovely cup of tea with some Spanish honey in it as a special treat because I gave up having sugar in my hot beverages about 2 months ago. And everywhere you look, everyone says, oh, you'll feel so much better if you cut refined sugar out of your diet and out of your drinks. And I feel lousy. I've felt lousy for the last couple of months. I'm very tempted to start putting sugar back in my tea and coffee because it seems a bit miserable without it. And I don't feel great. But I'm not going to, but I've treated myself to some honey tonight. And I've got some soup bubbling away on the hob, which I will have after this. So that's nice. So, some quite exciting news this week. My Astrantia is finally ready. I mean, isn't that amazing? We're at the end of the season, everyone's packing up and going home, but no, the Astrantia is like, no, we're ready. So I've got 3 beautiful stems. I think it's Roma that I have. So it's this gorgeous dusty pink, beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous and it's so lovely. So I sent some photos to my lovely wedding florist. And I was like, the Astrantia is ready because we were talking about this all year. And Astrantia is something that she was really keen on, and she said, I'll buy it. It's great. And the plants have just really struggled ever since the spring. Don't know what's happened to them. And then obviously the heat came and they were just absolutely hopeless. So I think I've had maybe 2 stems off a couple of plants this year. Rubbish. Anyway, they're looking absolutely lovely. So I sent her a photo, said, I'm not trying to sell them to you. I just want to share the news that they have finally made an appearance. No sales on the hub this week, which is not the end of the world. I had a few bits up on there. I've got some lovely cruspedia. I think this is like the 3rd flush of cruspedia this year, and I put them up and some other bits and pieces of Verbena bonariensis that I pretty much can't give away. Don't know what's happened with that this year. Nobody wants it. But nobody's bought anything, so it doesn't matter. So I think the hub might be going to sleep for the winter and then coming back in the spring. I'm not sure about that, but I don't think I'm going to put anything on next week, which might be the next final week anyway of the year. And the other bit of very good news is that I've been contacted by one of the florists that I messaged back in July. And if you listen regularly, you may have heard the episode where I was agonizing over how I thought I'd messed things up with florists, and I'd sent these messages out and nobody got back to me, and I was just feeling a bit rubbish about the whole thing. Like either they hate me, even though they don't know me, or I'd not made the right offering, or they just weren't interested, or whatever. Anyway, one of them bought some stems from me on the hub last week. And then a couple of days ago, one of them, the other lady, replied to me that I'd sent a message to, which is really nice. So I'm going to get back to her and let her know what I've still got. But that is lovely. So all that time I spent thinking, gosh, I've really messed this up. I hadn't really, it's just how things go. So there's a lesson there. I've been making a website as well for the cut flowers. I think it's about time I got one of those, and then I've got all winter to sort out the SEO and all of those bits and pieces. So if anybody does search for me, they can find me. And I've tweaked my logo a little bit, so I guess you'll only see that if you are on Instagram and you look. But I don't know that you'll even see the amendment. But I've basically just tweaked the logo a little bit, and I've put a tiny little sort of line drawn hen on top of one of the H initials, which I think is really cute. And then I'm going to use it as like a little not my logo, but I don't know what you call it, one of those like little secondary logos that you can just dot around the place. So I'm quite pleased with that. And it's been really busy on the plots. I've been getting on with making my 4 new beds on the area that Nigel, the turf lifting man, lifted for me back in the spring. And that's actually my other half had been offering to help for ages and ages and ages. And I just hadn't taken him up on his offer because he's got loads of stuff to do himself. And I just felt really bad dragging him away from his projects to do my project. Anyway, the mothership finally frog marched me off to do it yesterday. And I am the sort of person that sometimes I just need someone to stand over me and like make me do it. There's just a little bit too much procrastination sometimes, and I'm very good at making charts and lists. I'm excellent at making lists, and then they just sit and look at me all week, and I get really overwhelmed. So the mothership was like, "No, we're just going to go and do it, and I will help you." And bless her, she did. She's been working really hard, and we did it as well for half a day this morning as well. So we've got 2 new beds done. They're about 14 meters long. I really wanted to make them 15 just because they're just 15 meters sounded better. But that would mean they go slap bang up against a shed, and that's no good. So they're 14 meters long, just over a meter wide. I'll probably make them a little bit wider when it actually comes to it. So we've cleared all the weeds out. It was mostly just thistles and grass, tiny bit of grass. But I've done it all by hand with hori hori, which was quite tricky, and I feel like I can't even use cutlery this evening, to be honest. My wrists are a little bit sore, but it was a good job done. And then we've put a nice thick layer of the chickens' deep litter manure. So they have shavings in their houses. They're actually on a soil floor, but there is corrugated iron underneath the soil just because we had an issue with the rats just popping up in the night, and it wasn't very nice for the birds. So we lifted the whole floor, put corrugated iron sheets underneath on a slope so the water actually sort of drains down the corrugated iron, and then we put all the soil back, and then there's shavings go on the top, and they're on a deep litter, so I scuff it up and they scuff it up every day, and then every so often I empty it all out, and it sits outside for a while, kind of rots down outside the house. And if anybody's like in isolation or in the sort of the naughty meshed compartment, they'll turn it over for me. So the 2 teenage boys, Moley with one eye and one ear, and his brother Lion are in there because they're a little bit too much for the girls at the moment. So the boys are in there and they get up to mischief. So they have been just mixing all of this deep litter manure into just different piles for me all week. So we wheelbarrowed all of that up and wheelbarrowed it all the way through the plot. The mothership only backed into and destroyed one plant, which was a cosmos, which she claims she didn't see, and just completely snapped it off. Oh, do you know what? It's the end of the season, and I really don't care. She offered to pay for it, and I was like, "Don't be silly. It's fine. Don't do it again." But the cosmos has just been so weird for me this year. Like, I'll be quite glad to just get them lifted and get rid of them. But they're a nice little bit of colour out there at the moment. Now, I haven't done my crop plan yet for next year. I'm still, um, I would like to say, assessing the situation in a sort of business style, but I'm actually just sort of procrastinating and not quite sure how to make the decisions because the 4 new beds are on this where the turf's been lifted. So the soil is not, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not been cultivated. So it's not brilliant quality. And compared to other areas of the plot where the soil is absolutely lovely, I'm thinking, where should I put the roses and the hydrangeas? Should they go where the soil is great, or should they go down where the soil is not so great and they're kind of more shrubby? They're not going to be quite as fussy as the annuals, but then I want them to perform really well because they're valuable plants and the stems are valuable. But yeah, so I'm still kind of dithering about that, and there is like one tree that sort of doesn't hang over, but it's very, very tall. And I'm just thinking, oh, if any of those branches came down and like flattened my roses, I would be pretty devastated. And it's not a tree that's like in my field, so I can't actually do any tree work on it myself. So I'm still dithering about that. But one of the things that I did discover when I was weeding by hand today was there were a lot of worm casts, which I think is a very, very good sign. I hadn't seen, I mean, I haven't said that. I haven't seen any worms, but I'm not digging the soil over anyway because I'm no till. So it's literally just not disturbing the soil. And so I haven't really been, in a position to find loads and loads of worms. So it was quite nice today to see all these worm casts and think, there is something going on. The worms are down there, which is a very good sign. So the other thing I've done is order a soil blocking gadget from a UK manufacturer. Now, this is the one that Lisa Mason Ziegler uses when she germinates all of her seeds. And I have never done it before. And I thought, yes, add another element into my life, make it more complicated, try a new technique I've never done before. So if the mothership's listening, it's coming in the post this week to your house. Now, the thing about the soil blocking, it looks really amazing and it looks quite straightforward to use. I'm quite sure there's going to be a knack, and I think I probably ought to practice with some seeds that maybe it's not so important, or certainly not do every single seed in the soil blocker. But it looks to me that the technique might well work for me because I've been using these sort of reusing these plastic trays that I've had for years and years that you get, that you buy your summer bedding plants in from a garden centre, for example. And so you get like 6 or 8 little cubes. And that works very well. But actually, what I found is that you do use an awful lot of compost for what could be a very, very tiny seed. And then I did grow stuff in trays like these old recycled chicken thigh trays. And then they were quite hard to separate the roots because I'd just oversown them. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll give the soil blocking a go. And I know that you have to create a special mix, and I have got some vermiculite. But I might need to get something else to go in there. I'll have a think about that. But that I think will be interesting. So I will try it out and report back and let you know how I got on. So hang on a second while I just take a sip of tea. Okay, so the other bit of news to share with you is how I got on at the local Dahlia Society show that I went to on Sunday. Now, I did go to one a couple of weeks ago. The society runs 2 in September every year. And I went along a couple of weeks ago and nobody had entered any of the novice classes. And I thought, I really need to just have a go at this. Like, yes, there's an enormous amount of skill and learning and expertise, but if you've just got to get into it, really. So I thought, I'll give it a go. My daily mentor, Richard Bailey, was going as well. He was going to be there to help me set up and everything. So I am slightly embarrassed to say I was the only person that took my stems in a bucket with just chicken mesh in to support the stems. And everybody else obviously has these very, very complicated, fancy arrangements where they transport their stems in a special way, everything individually tied in and blah, blah, blah. And I was going to put my stems in some pipe insulation, which I thought would be great because it's padded and the stems aren't going to get damaged. It's not really about the stems getting damaged, it's about the petals. So it all depends on what stem length you do. And I didn't want to do ridiculously long stem lengths because I didn't want to lose the buds that are on the plants if I might be able to sell those flowers in due course. So I wasn't going to cut down like most of the plant just to take part in a competition that I wasn't going to stand a chance of winning anything. So all mine turned up fine. And despite using a bucket with chicken mesh in it, which didn't look very professional at all, nothing got damaged. Everything was absolutely fine. So that was brilliant. And I cut everything that I had ready on Sunday morning. I was going to cut on Saturday and then it rained. So I thought I'd better leave them to just dry out. And I entered a novice class with one of my fimbriated dahlias, just married, and 5 other non novice classes where I was up against the big boys. And I'll tell you how I got on. I won my first prize in the novice, and that's because I was the only entry in the class. Now, admittedly, they don't have to give you first prize even if you're the only one, but they tend to. And then I got a third prize for one of my just marrieds in the FIM class, and there were only 3 of us in the class. And then third prize in a miniature semi-cactus where I took Jasudi Neptune. And there were 4 people in the class, so I wasn't going to get any kind of prize, and then one of the competitors got disqualified for being oversized. So by default, I got third. And I won a whopping £5 in prize money, which I was absolutely thrilled about because as a return on investment, I paid £1.55 to enter. I thought that's actually not bad, leaving aside the fact that I spent all day there. So, and I also won 3 raffle prizes. So that's super useful. And when you go to gardening and flower related things, the raffle prizes tend to be super, super useful. So I got some string, some hand cream, and a box of biscuits, which I gave Richard to thank him for supporting me. And he helped me to do the staging outside in the car park on a fold up table because you need so much stuff when you do these things. And then you have to make these little cards up with the variety name on and put that next to your vase. So I made all of those and put them all around all my vases and then watched as everyone else just went and got their cards from the organisers who print them. So, lesson learnt there. And I got invited to steward, i.e., follow the judge around with the judging. And I thought, well, that'll be very interesting. And it was, but it took over 2 hours to do the judging. It was absolutely painstaking. And I just sort of thought, he'll just look at everything. I say he because it's all gentlemen doing this. I was the only lady that took part. So I thought the judging, he would just sort of look at everything, maybe lift a vase down and have a look around the back because I know the backs of the flowers are very important. But it was the most painstaking process I've ever seen in my life. And it's so intimidating. Like, I know so much now that I think I'd be too frightened to enter ever again. Because when you see how the judge assesses everything and then you see the faults on everything, which I probably wouldn't have spotted if I'd just gone and looked at them, you kind of think there's almost no point even getting out of bed, and certainly no point taking any stems to these shows because, yeah, they're just not good enough. But it was very, very interesting, and I'm just amazed that I got the opportunity to do it. So the judge looks at the backs, obviously, which I was super aware of, at the centers, the formation, the petals, and the sizing. And the sizing, there are rings. There are like these little cardboard rings, and you've got to be able to fit the flower through the ring. All different size rings for all the different classes. You can't have any flat sides, no lumpiness. Didn't know that was a thing. And absolutely, and I'm reiterating this again, no green centers. And so the because this is an absolute no-no. And I don't know whether florists would even know or care about this. I'll have to ask my wedding florist actually. But for judging, it's absolute no-no to have a green center. And practically all of mine, apart from Just Married, which were perfect, all the semi-cactus that I took, the miniatures, had green centers because the ones that didn't have green centers, which basically means the bud is too early. It's not ready. It's not ready yet, and it'll be ready a few days later. But the ones that were more ready, that at home on the plot, that didn't have the green centers, the backs had gone. So I thought, well, I'm not taking something if the backs have gone, and I'll get there, and all the petals will fall out, probably in the cart, probably just putting them in the cart. That's the other thing that happens with the dahlias. So the fronts weren't ready, but the backs were ready. So, but I lost more points because the fronts weren't ready than the backs. And also, I learnt for all of my Jasudi Neptune that Richard very, very generously gave me last year, and they're a beautiful flower. They don't, they don't they don't open all the way around. They're supposed to make like a ball, a spiky ball. And mine just never went all the way. Mine never completely opened, which could be why Richard wanted to get rid of them. So perfect for cut flowers, but not perfect for exhibiting. And also somebody told me to add more foliage in the displays. Now this is this is my mistake because I'm so used to stripping everything in the field. So when I do my conditioning, I strip the stems and I compost the green material because I hate the thought of giving it to the florist and they just put it all in the bin. So I try and keep it on site so I can compost it. And of course, force of habit, I was cutting the dahlias, stripped all the stems, got there, and of course realised that they're all just naked and you have to have some kind of foliage. So we ended up having to add little bits of foliage from Richard's dahlias into my vases. So there was a lesson learned there. And then the society invited me to have lunch, which was amazing. Somebody'd made a whole tray of homemade lasagna. Like, I just wasn't going to say no to that. And they're like a family. It was really extraordinary. I've never known anything like it. everybody knows everybody in the society, and they've known each other like since the dawn of time. They live and breathe dahlias. They're like walking encyclopedias. They just know everything, and they're very happy to share information with novices. They were very pleased that I'd had a go. And then someone said, now that you've won a novice class, you can't ever enter novice because you won now. So you have to enter all the other classes. So that'll be fun next year. And I also realized just going around with a judge that some types really are better for showing than others. I think the Fims are quite challenging. They're quite a challenging flower, especially for a novice. So I haven't really done myself any massive favors with those, but it also depends on what the judge likes. Excuse me. That's very much a factor. And as we were going around doing all the judging, I kind of thought, I don't think this judge likes that particular type of flower very much. And then he admitted later, yeah, no, he said, I can't stand those. But, if they're excellent quality, they'll win. But otherwise, they don't stand much of a chance. So it really depends the judge that you get on the day. And the normal judge we were supposed to have, he had COVID, so he had to cancel. So someone else had to do the judging. So, you it's in the hands of the gods, isn't it, really? But it was a very nice day, very fun day. I put my little cards up, and I'm chuffed to bits. It was very nice to take part. And as I'm now a member of the society, because you have to join as a member to take part in the show, I get to go to their Christmas party, which is very exciting because I don't get to go to any Christmas parties otherwise. And the lady that did the lasagna, she's already told me what's on the menu for the Christmas dinner, so very excited about that. Now, that is all I have to tell you today. I think that's probably quite enough. I will be back on Friday. Hopefully, this nasty little cold will have gone, and I've got some more beds finished. And also, I'm desperately trying to crack on and finish the studio because the feed room is chock-a-block full of dried stems. And if you're not careful, you brush past it, and then it gets stuck to you, and then there's just a whole load of chaos. So it'd be nice to get on with that. I hope you have a great week and that you are healthy and happy and that your growing is going well as well. Anyway, enough from me. I'll be back on Friday, and I very much hope that you will join me then. All the very best.